windy day. The gray mist of the Dutch sky blends with the sea. In the distance, a lonely sailboat, fishermen on the shore, and a quiet light bathing everything in peace. It may look simple to you, but for Jan van Goyen, this simplicity was art itself. He captured everyday life, the wetlands, the calm after the storm, the beauty hidden in silence, and breathed new life into Dutch landscape painting. Today we'll step into that quiet world of soft colors and endless horizons, and discover the genius behind those tranquil brushstrokes. Jan van Goyen. Fact 1. Birthplace and early fascination. Jan van Goyen was born in 1596 in the quiet Dutch city of Leiden. At that time, Leiden was a hub of art and trade, the streets filled with the scent of the sea, the clatter of potters' wheels, and the creaking of windmills blending into one constant hum. Young Jan grew up surrounded by these sounds, observing every day the color of the sky, the movement of the sea, and the direction of the wind. From an early age, his attention was not on people, but on nature itself. While other children played, he would watch the marshes, the shifting colors of the clouds, and the sunlight shimmering on the water, as if trying to understand the very language of wind and light. Van Goyen began shaping his world on canvas from a young age. He painted not just what he saw, but what he felt. The calm of the sea, the distant village houses, and the quiet beneath a gray sky. All these childhood impressions slowly transformed into art. Perhaps even then, he had no idea that he was about to ignite a new era in Dutch landscape painting. Fact 2. The student who learned the magic of simplicity. In his youth, Jan van Goyen traveled to various cities to explore the magic of art. At that time in the Netherlands, young painters would study in the workshops of several masters to discover their own style, and Jan was no exception. He worked in cities like Haarlem, Leiden, and The Hague, where each master taught him a different secret of the brush. But the most important chapter of his early life was the years he spent with Esaias van de Velde. Van de Velde taught young Jan not just to see nature, but to understand its spirit. He showed him the depth hidden in serene landscapes, the mysterious atmosphere of misty weather, and how sunlight danced on the surface of water. For Van Goyen, these lessons were more than technique. They were a way of seeing the world. He treated painting as a kind of prayer, sensing the wind in every stroke, the waves in every line, and the depth of the sky in every shade. These years laid the foundation of his style and marked the beginning of the journey that would one day make him one of the masters of Dutch landscape painting. Fact 3. The master of gray tones. Jan van Goyen chose a different path in the world of colors. He avoided bright, vivid hues and instead discovered a beauty hidden in the mist. In his paintings, the sky was rarely a clear blue. It was often clouded, the sea not dark but calm and tranquil. He worked with 100 shades of gray, sometimes like ashes, sometimes like silver, sometimes as soft as morning fog. For Van Goyen, these colors expressed melancholy, the depth of nature, and the calm within the human soul. Looking at his works, you can almost feel the air, the touch of the wind, the distant sound of waves. It wasn't just painting, it was a way of speaking the language of silence. This is why Jan van Goyen is remembered in art history as the master of gray tones. Fact 4. The painter who spoke God's light. For Jan van Goyen, nature was more than just a landscape. He felt the breath of God in it. Spiritually, he was a man of deep faith, yet he practiced it quietly and humbly. He did not paint church walls or sacred figures, but in every landscape he sought to convey the presence of God. The light in his paintings was not simply sunlight. It symbolized God's mercy and a warmth that touches the human soul. The rays filtering through clouds, the calm surface of the sea, the distant church steeples. For Van Goyen, all of this was a form of prayer. He believed that one does not need to speak loudly to find God. Sometimes a single brushstroke in silence can reveal his greatness. In Van Goyen's canvases, this quiet faith is palpable, as if a prayer is whispered across the painting. Fact 5. Thousands of paintings, one soul. Jan van Goyen's brush never rested. Over his lifetime, he created thousands of works. Around 1,200 paintings and over 800 sketches have survived to this day. But these numbers are more than just statistics. They are the prayers of a lifetime. Every morning as he stood before a blank canvas, it was as if he were opening a new page, capturing the air, the light, the sea, and the depths of the human spirit. For him, paintings were not merely landscapes. They were expressions of the divine calm hidden in life. His prolific output was not only due to diligence. He poured into the canvas a spiritual energy, a gift he felt from God. Every brushstroke was like a breath, like a whispered prayer. Today, thousands of his works live in museums around the world, yet each one carries the same soul. Simple, humble, and profoundly close to God. Fact 6. Beauty hidden in simplicity. For Jan van Goyen, beauty was not found in noise, wealth, or grandeur. He was a kind of minimalist. Simple village houses, quiet rivers, small boats, and distant church steeples became his favorite subjects. He believed that the true values of life were hidden in this simplicity. He wanted to show nature not just as it appeared, but as God had created it, humble, calm, and sincere. For Van Goyen, these landscapes were more than paintings. They were mirrors of the human soul. Sometimes a shoreline, a lone tree, or a ray of sunlight would appear in his canvases. Yet this modesty filled the viewer's heart. He painted emptiness with meaning. This was his artistic philosophy. In every small thing God has created, there is a great miracle. Through Jan van Goyen's canvases, we learn that simplicity can be the deepest form of art. Fact 7. Art for the people. Jan van Goyen lived during the Dutch Golden Age, a time when many artists worked for nobles and royalty. But Van Goyen was different. He created art not for palaces, but for ordinary people. His paintings rarely featured kings, battles, or lavish banquets. Instead, he painted simple villagers, fishermen, shepherds, and windmills. He saw beauty in the everyday life of the people, as if saying, "The value of life lies in its simplicity." This approach would later be recognized across Europe as democratic art, the idea that art should belong not only to the privileged, but to everyone. Jan van Goyen was one of the pioneers of this philosophy, bridging the gap between the grandeur of art and the humble reality of daily life. Fact 8. The man who captured light. For Jan van Goyen, color was not just paint, it was the language of feeling. He sought to capture a fleeting moment of sunlight breaking through the clouds, as if holding God's own touch. While most painters of his time used bright, vivid colors and bold details, Van Goyen chose the calm tones of nature. Gray seas, golden fields, pale blue skies, and the soft light filtering through it all. This light created a sense of inner calm, like the quiet after a storm. For Van Goyen, it was both a spiritual symbol and a sign of hope. In every painting, he hid a little peace, a silent prayer, and a breath of God. Some say that when you look at his work, you can almost hear the wind whispering and the water flowing. Perhaps this was his greatest secret. He was not merely painting landscapes, he was bringing light itself to life. Fact 9. Genius, yet forgotten. Van Goyen worked tirelessly throughout his life, yet the irony of fate is that he was almost unknown during his own time. Because he painted simple subjects, some called him a cheap painter. His works were sometimes sold at the market for the price of a loaf of bread, but he painted not for fame, but for the soul. Over the years, the art world came to understand that the simplicity Van Goyen created was actually the most difficult mastery of all. Today, his paintings are preserved in the world's greatest museums. Those brushstrokes, once undervalued, now inspire millions, offering both reflection and quiet peace. Fact 10. A quiet farewell. On a calm day in 1656, Jan van Goyen passed away. He left this world not in wealth or grandeur, but in a simple home, with a humble soul. He left behind neither palaces nor monuments, but through thousands of paintings, he immortalized the quiet beauty of God's creation. After his death, his family sold his works cheaply to pay debts, yet no one could sell his spirit, for with his brush he had written a prayer to humanity, and prayers never die. Even centuries later, when we look at his paintings, we can almost hear the whisper of the wind, and we realize that Jan van Goyen never truly left. If you enjoyed this journey into the serene world of Jan van Goyen, don't forget to like this video, Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any of our future stories. Thank you for watching and stay curious.